Hello, everyone. So, let's talk about episode 7, The Gap. Um, this one was better than the last one for me. And I guess I should say that all this is my opinion. Okay, I'm not doing some bullshit in-depth essay telling you what I think you should think about the show. I'm just giving my thoughts. So you may completely disagree with me and think I'm full of shit, and that's fine. I'm that's okay, because that's what art is ultimately. It's meant to be interpreted by the audience and every individual member of that audience, because we all have different tastes and interests and points of view and perspectives, and you know. I learned that in art class back in the day. Um, Probably the most valuable lesson I learned from art class was critiquing and how to take critique. But this episode was 100% about the characters. And I would say it's about 3 characters. Carol, obviously. Gosh, he repeated his name like 5,000 times in the episode. Oh, by the way, spoilers. Um, the guy from the other country um, who was the other person who wants to save the world. It was about him, and it was about the others, the hive, and obviously they're just one mind, so that I'm counting them as one character. And if I forget characters' names, I'm sorry. I have a terrible memory, so that's why. Um, I tried to make it a point to remember his name, and I didn't, and it pisses me off. Anyway, um, and the others are most often personified by Zoja. And I really like that character. I like her persona. I like um, the actor and her performance as the hive. Um, so it was nice to see her come back. I knew she would, but yeah. So Carol, on her way back from Vegas, uh, she has to go and um, she stops at various places to get gas, and she has them deliver her what was it, like a Gatorade or something, and she's taking full advantage. And of course, she's not beating the Karen allegations because she says, I want it ice cold, and they bring it to her, and she calls them and complains, saying it's tepid. She said, I want it ice cold. And she's just being petty, you know, as we can all sometimes be, you know. No one's immune to it. But uh, she grabs a bunch of um, Jesus Christ, I wish I could talk. She grabs a bunch of fireworks and goes golfing, and she grabs a painting, an original, and hangs in her house, and you know, all the stuff that so many of us. I mean, I personally wouldn't go golfing, but um, it's all the stuff that a person would do, at the end of the world, having all that empty space and free reign. So, uh, then we switch to the other guy, or not the other guy, but the guy, and he has decided that he's going to go and find Carol. And he's traveling. He has a long way to go. Um, he's traveling, and his journey is far more difficult than Carol's because he refuses to speak to or even acknowledge the others. Um, and he views them as an absolute threat. Which I don't blame him. I mean, it's a pretty crazy situation, But he, because he's not speaking with them, Carol can just make a phone call and they bring her whatever she wants, or they turn on the pumps for the gas or whatever. This guy has to do it all himself. And he finds cars along the way, abandoned cars, and he siphons gas. And there's a way you can siphon gas where you don't have to. He sucks it out of the tank, and there's a way you can do that where you don't have to do that. It's probably better for your health. But one of the others comes up to him on the road when he's walking to try and find gas and offers him water, and doesn't even acknowledge them. And he collects rainwater in cans of food that he's used, and he's very much just entirely reliant upon himself. And as we all know, in this world, we need other people. We rely upon each other. And not just for production of food or production of gasoline, delivery of food and gasoline, or whatever else. We rely upon each other in every way. But I'll get to that a little bit later. So our guy he comes to the end of a road, and he hoofs it. Gets out of his car, and a few of the others approach him from out of the wilderness, and they try to warn him, say, hey, there's another way to do this. And he sets his car on fire, and he just walks off. He walks into the jungle. Well, he's walking along, making fires, doing what he has to do. And then he's going through the jungle, cutting down trees, and he encounters a tree that has these poisonous spikes sticking out of it. Really long, gnarly suckers. And he carefully maneuvers around them, and then he gets to a certain point, he slips, and he can't catch himself in time, and he falls back on the spikes. Well, he pulls himself off of there, and he tries to cauterize the wounds. But they're on his back, so it's really hard to get to, and the poison's still in his body. So he's basically dying in the middle of the jungle. And then a helicopter shows up, and he presumably gets saved. Cut to 48 days later, and Carol is using her newly acquired golf clubs and skills to break windows in a downtown high-rise. And the fireworks that she picked up earlier, she sets them up in a circle around her. She's in her she lives in a kind of a cul-de-sac, and she sits in the middle in a chair, and she's surrounded by these big fireworks. And they go off one by one in series, and one of them kind of falls over a little bit, and it's pointed right at her. And she looks over, she sees it, she sees the wick burning down, and she's not doing anything. She's looking right at it, and this look of absolute resignation on her face. She doesn't give a shit anymore. It fires off, misses her by inches, which, by the way, if that did in fact happen, it would burn her. And it catches one of the houses behind her on fire. Not her house, but one of her neighbors, former neighbors. And that gives us a good window into her mental state. Then we see her, cuts to a hardware store. She goes in, grabs some paint, and goes out to her cul-de-sac, and she's painting the street. We don't see what she's painting. And she goes in her house, sits down, and begins admiring her newly acquired, i.e. stolen, painting. And then who drives up but Zosha? And she gets out of the car. Carol goes up to her and hugs her, like really like a bear hug. And she starts crying. She's bawling. And Zosha is there and kind of accepts the hug. The hive does. And I read the look on her face as being mildly sinister. I should say the possibility of being sinister. As sinister as this hive can be. I think at this point, as sinister as the most sinister they've been is wanting to convert everyone against their will. And that seems more like a delusion rather than actual negative intent. And then we pan out, and Carol had written "come back" on the street, because an earlier episode had established that they were watching her via drone high up in the atmosphere. And it just goes to show you that whether it be the dude walking through the jungle or Carol being cut off from other human beings, that we need each other. Humans are already kind of a hive in a way, in that we're all emotionally dependent upon one another. Now, some of us, like myself, are a little more standoffish and not as trusting, and you know, I have my own reasons for that. I understand it psychologically, so I don't need anyone to try and diagnose me. But at the end of the day, we all need that human contact for our lives psychologically. We need each other, and not just to deliver gas or food or whatever, or medical aid. And judging by some of the things that Vince Gilligan has said in at least one interview I watched, I think that may be part of his point. It certainly, I think, was the point of this episode. That's what I took from it most strongly. And it's true, I've had to grapple with that myself. And it sucks for someone who doesn't want to have those connections. Because if you're let's say, with the way things are going politically these days, if you're a liberal, leftist, if you're a queer person and you're living in a conservative area or a red state, or you're surrounded by fucking Nazis and you don't have enough money to leave, I mean, at a certain point you just have to escape, and by any means necessary. But when it comes to when it comes to that, but there's no one who you can really turn to get that support, because everybody around you is infected with a mind virus of evil, and so it really weighs upon you. And that's why it's important for all of us to have a community, to build our own. That's why queer people build families, because so many of us are harmed by our own families, and so we have to build our own. And you can call it family, or you can call it community. And especially with Carol, she lost her partner, and it was very clear Carol seems like the kind of person who is really standoffish and doesn't really like a whole lot of people. That's what I've interpreted through it thus far. And she might be able to make it through the apocalypse if she had her partner, but she doesn't. And so now she needs this hive for the moment. I'm sure the God, I wish I could remember what country he was from. Is he South American or? Yeah, I think he's South. Yeah, he's South American. We haven't seen the last of that guy. I think he's going to make his way to Carol, and then she'll have some kind of support. But I don't know. I am interested to see where it goes. I don't like filler episodes, as I said last time, and this one didn't feel like that because it was character driven. There was something happening emotionally for me, and via the characters and whatnot. So certainly the premise is very interesting, but also what it has to say, at the very least, with this episode about us. Is their desire to ultimately save the world futile? I don't know. We'll see. If Gilligan's prior series are any indication, he's just kind of doing it by the seat of his pants. He and the writing staff. So, but it's interesting. I'm glad glad he made it. I still think it could be shorter. I don't think I would want to watch 5 seasons of this at this point. Maybe, I mean, from what I've seen thus far, obviously that's what I'm judging it from. I'm not judging it from, that's all I have to judge it from. I don't know. Maybe they'll find a way to make it work. If so, that's great. I'll be along for the ride, as I said before. Yeah. But it was good. I liked that. My concern with the others and their reaction to Carol's cry for help, it concerns me because it could be manipulative. The look on on Joja's face when Carol, um, you know, basically begged for help. Um, so hopefully it's not a malevolent thing. But who knows? The thing about science fiction, and specifically like Star Trek, is that the best episodes subvert your expectations regarding a bad guy, good guy dichotomy. You know, certainly not every episode, of course, but there were some episodes like The Devil in the Dark from the original series. You know, it made you go, you think, oh, there's this monster in the dark, but it turns out that this monster is just a mother protecting its children, and it's not a malevolent thing. It's been harmed by the humans and whatnot. And to have Kirk, of all characters, you know, be the one, the badass man, you know, the captain, be the one to understand that and go, oh, wait a minute, that was great. I don't mean to go into a review of a Star Trek episode, but I don't want the excuse me, the others to be strictly a malevolent force, even if they're nice on the outside, you know. I don't think they are, because I don't think that's just too dumb for Vince Gilligan at this point. So, yeah, I'm interested to see where it goes. Alright, thanks for watching, everybody. Bye-bye.